at least drink? Okay, we will take a little hydrate break.
Cappuccino. Actually, there's some pepper in my cappuccino now. I'm gonna live with it.
Hey, it's just a little earthy tones and a little spice to your coffee. It'll wake you up.
Mm-hmm. Not the first time. I go and think about Calynn first of all. I think about the fact that no matter what I send you, you're gonna make some very usable, amazing art out of it for some reason. I can
Thank
send you a
you.
picture of a cat and I will get the greatest emote in existence. Let's start with emotes, because I think emotes is pretty much, I assume, also how you got more into commissions and stuff.
Emotes are actually the first thing I my first commission. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I don't have like the typical art journey that I feel most artists have, where since they were a child, they've always had
Mm-hmm.
crayons in their hand and they've been drawing from, the very start, and they've never stopped, and it's one of their biggest passions. I started drawing about 3 years ago,
Oh.
and it's all because Mr. Oswald had a iPad and wanted
Mm-hmm.
to participate in some type of fan art contest. And I looked at his sketch and I said, "Hand it over to me. I wanna do it as well." And then it kind of sparked the joy of creativity for me. And I'm a bit pragmatic. I don't really like creating things for the sake of creating, which, as an artist, sounds kind of sad. But for me personally, I like to give people things that they can use. So
Mm-hmm.
I naturally gravitated towards stream assets. And emotes just seem like the most approachable thing to create as a complete beginner.
Mm-hmm.
These are the most recent set I've created. It's a your character here inspired by our ugly daughter, Miss Lucy, short for Miss Lucifer. Stinky baby, stinky babby. Yeah, and cat emotes are the reason why I've actually met a lot of wonderful, wonderful people. A lot of my lovely commissioners started off with pet emotes.
Mm-hmm. But also, not only emotes, I think this one was also somewhat early in your art journey, quote unquote.
I made this one sometime this year.
Oh,
It was
okay.
just a example of, how do I word it? I had been making mascots for people since the beginning of my commission journey as well, because
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Oswald had a friend that wanted a chat pet. I said, I'll give it a shot. And then I used to make chat pets and then not charge any any design fees. So I'd be making like a $25 chat pet with
Mm,
completely new designs for people.
classic.
And I decided, wow, I'm wasting a lot of time and money doing that. So I
Mm-hmm.
opened up design commissions, and this is kind of the process I showed people. To pretty much, client gives me their VTuber or any mood boards. I'll
Mm-hmm.
create a sketch. They give me feedback. In this case, it was make it a little bit more chibi, remove certain aspects of their model, and then to give them an armband, and then the finalized results.
You
Yeah,
removed the belly button.
I know. I was sad. I think this is also one of the cases where I kind of have to realize sometimes the customer is wrong. The customer is wrong in my heart, but I have to follow their design instructions nonetheless, because I think the first sketch had a lot more personality. It was a bit more unique. It's a silly looking guy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but at the end of the day, clients will want something that feels a bit more them, even if it doesn't
Yeah.
feel the most unique or in depth in design.
Mm-hmm. And I think these ones have been more of a passion thing.
The top one especially, I had just opened a very experimental style,
Mm-hmm.
because pretty much all of last year I only did assets, and I really didn't dive into illustrations. And I had really missed drawing faces. When I was younger, I pretty much only drew characters' faces because I sucked at anatomy and drawing objects just seemed really boring. And I kind of really missed it because I only drew what I was commissioned to draw.
Mm-hmm.
And opening up this experimental banner styled illustration was kind of me hoping someone would care about the things I care about, which is,
Mm-hmm.
drawing people. I think it's fun. And then this eye banner is of our good friend Mira. This is their second commission, I think.
Oh.
They've commissioned me many times afterwards, but
Mm-hmm.
once again, commission that led to a wonderful friendship. I think I just included this one because it's a bit unique compared to other eye banners in the way the eye shape is drawn, the way the hair is rendered. It was also very
Mm-hmm.
experimental because I am very uncomfortable with rendering. I know you'll ask about my art journey later, but I don't do art
Yes.
studies. I have no training. I I kind of just look at an image and hope for the best. That is my art journey.
So what I noticed about shading as well with the eyebrows, for example, the way they
Are
are
the
shaded.
eyelashes?
Yes, eyelashes. Like with the stripes and stuff, you can
Mm.
see it's still very much experimental everywhere. Like, why exactly like this, or how did you get to this? Because it looks very cool,
Um,
but it's
I
different than
think
what you do usually.
primarily because I mainly work with cell shade. I don't do
Mm-hmm.
much rendering. I don't apply too much depth or painterly techniques, but I wanted to incorporate more textures
Mm-hmm.
because I felt certain elements were too flat. And in areas like the eyelashes where they have, independent strands, I wanted to kind of replicate that, even though they're not in the right direction because your lashes go away from you.
Mm-hmm.
I thought providing some variation in texture would give it more depth.
Mm-hmm.
And also, it replicates a little bit of like the shine when light hits your eyes.
Mm-hmm. By itself, the way this is made is very cool. Because, as you say, it's definitely unique compared to the way many other artists will do things.
Yeah, I think I have a very
Mm-hmm.
funky style.
Yes.
it, I think it
Yeah.
kind of leans between
Mm-hmm.
anime and cartoon in the way I draw things.
Mm-hmm.
Because it has the cat-like proportions in the face,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't have the typical anime style rendering. And
Mm-hmm.
shapes are a bit more blocked out rather than giving a bit more variation. Things are kind of drawn in one large piece, like most cartoons are.
Mm-hmm. But also, like what I see a lot in your art, just looking at this, there is so much purpose in about everything that is somewhere. Like the line here, for example, it's very simplistic, but it gives the shape of the ear in about its entirety with the bit of shading it has.
I think the reason why my work is a bit more purposeful is because
Mm-hmm.
I started off with emotes. And in
Mm-hmm.
emotes, you only have so much space. Most of the emotes you see are like 56 by 56 pixels or 112 by 112. So
Mm-hmm.
you kind of have to focus on the bigger picture rather than fine details. So by, doing the ears, you can visualize the shape a lot more than if you were to do every crevice and shading the ears like perfectly.
Mm-hmm. So there's just generally a lot of intention in your art.
Yes.
That is very cool.
I tend to zoom out a lot rather than focus on every little detail.
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
Evil, evil child. She's naughty.
uh-huh. So that already answers a bit of the question I had as well, which is how you would describe your own art. And you said it's a bit like in the anime style, but you also do these, for example, have a lot more shading going on in general
Yes.
and
I'd
textures.
say my stream assets tend to have a bit more reflective and metallic themes. I like drawing metals for some reason. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know why. I think it's fun in the way it blends, especially for animated overlays like this. The client requested a PSD file, so their headpiece had the dangly charms. Their name is Ruby, so I decided to incorporate rubies. And then for their chat box, I actually have a separate screen layer where it can
Mm-hmm.
pass through the entire chat box to give it like a light passing through it kind of effect, like a nice shine. And I just think things like that are simple enough to not be visually distracting for stream assets, but it gives enough personality that it's visually enticing.
Mm-hmm.
Because in stream overlays, the last thing you want is for your design to overwhelm or take away from the VTuber. At the end of the
Yes.
day, they should be the focus. And that's also why I try to make in the activity screens, I try to make the screen's a bit bigger. But in this one in particular, the VTuber asked me to make it smaller because they tend to watch a lot of videos on stream.
Ah, that explains.
Yes, it's much smaller than I would typically make them.
I think we have a second one here where you can see.
Oh yeah, it's a lot larger of a screen.
Mm-hmm.
Again with the metallic effects. I also love adding bloom, which gives the glow, for example, on the words
Mm-hmm.
chat. It kind of gives things a bit more light, especially on the darker aspects of the chat box towards the top of it.
Mm-hmm.
It shines a bit more. And I think those things are just nice.
I agree. Especially with the shine and everything in stream overlays. It's something
Hmm.
I personally looked out as well, even though I don't really have metallic elements, but it's definitely, it gives it a very clean look,
You
I
definitely
agree.
have glow.
Yeah, like glow and the fireflies and everything, so.
Yes. For that overlay in
Mm-hmm.
particular, that
Mm-hmm.
client actually didn't have their own model or any assets yet. So they just
Mm.
told me to, for like a gothic themed overlay, they said they trusted me and I just went with this and they ended up loving it
Yes.
a lot. So I was quite happy.
I mean, it looks very cool, especially, I don't know the professional word for this.
The filigree, I guess.
Yes. I feel like these you do really well in general.
They're mostly brushes, but I also fine tune them to not make them look so samey from commission to commission. Um, but since I work with so many gothic themes, it's definitely a time saver.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, there's a lot of gothic themes generally in the streaming community, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Very gothic, very edgy, very, medieval, Renaissance, Art Nouveau, like Lurky.
Yes. But yeah, it's pretty generally. But yeah, you also do logos.
Yes. I also used to charge like $20 for these, and I would spend way more than 20
Uh-huh.
20 dollars worth of time on it. Um, this is actually my most recent logo, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And the FrogShop one was my first ever logo. I made it on a whim. I didn't think I would actually start, you know, hosting commissions.
Mm-hmm.
I just made it because I went, oh, I think VTuber logos are so cute. I want to try and make one myself. And I liked it so much. I said, well, I think other people might like it, and I started commissions.
Yes.
The client asked for something specifically a bit more simple. So they
Mm-hmm.
already had a logo before, but they felt like it was too maximalist for what they wanted to
Mm-hmm.
go for. So they commissioned me for something sweet and simple, which is what I specialize in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they wanted a very clean font. If you zoom in, you can actually see the water effects on the text. They are
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what type of dinosaur it is. It's a specific aquatic dinosaur mixed with Vaporeon. It
Vaporeon,
themes
yes.
with a Vaporeon and one more animal. I don't quite remember. But I took the water elements. I took the starfish off of their model. I took the coral off of their model, and I believe these stars were my personal addition just to give it some color variation. But I took the
Mm-hmm.
pink from something. I don't quite remember what.
You're very good at working close to the designs of the people who commission you.
So actually, I have some degree of aphantasia, which
Mm-hmm.
is when you can't picture images in your head. I don't have it
Yes.
completely. Like I can still imagine some variation of shapes and colors, but it's bad enough to the point where if I don't have a reference, I can't really imagine everything. But the moment you give me a good reference, I can cook. I can put things together very well in my head.
Mm-hmm.
That's also the reason why I struggle a good bit with design. I would never open like references for human characters or doing like design work for clothing because it's too intricate and there's too many pieces for me to put together. For things like mascots, if you tell me you want a raccoon or a cat, it's
Mm-hmm.
easy to look up images of those pre-existing animals. On top of the outfits for the mascots, I can pull off of the VTuber.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but if you ask me to cook something completely from scratch for a VTuber, I would never be able to do it. It does not work. Rotate an apple in your head. Actually, I did draw an apple
Mm-hmm.
that you'll see later. But if you
Yeah.
ask me to picture an apple, I can only picture certain aspects of it, but I can't quite put it together. Like I know the general shape of it. I know the colors that apples come in, but the moment I try to picture it all together, it kind of looks like a blob. It looks like if you were to upload a picture of an apple onto your canvas and then take your Gaussian blur and then turn it up to like, I don't know, like 20. That's what images look like in my head. Yeah, that's why I rely on references a whole lot.
Because even then, just your creations have so much intention behind it that you wouldn't be able to guess, basically.
I think because I can't imagine things, I put more intention to design elements.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because, for example, with the Sorania logo, I pulled certain elements directly off of their model that I thought were a focal point that well represented who they are and what they are. By
Mm-hmm.
looking at that, you know they're aquatic. You know they
Yes.
have like coral reefs on them. You know they have these pearl details on them, likely. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and there's likely water on the design. It's easy to um, kind of do like a brand association, and that's another
Mm-hmm.
thing I try really hard on. Is I feel like a lot of YouTuber logos don't well represent the actual VTuber because sometimes you're just taking color palettes, sometimes you're just taking a couple elements here and there, and it ends up a little bit too generic because you're just going, oh, they have some bows, so let me put them, on a couple of the letters. But you're not
Mm-hmm.
looking at a fuller image of the VTuber as a whole. And by only taking a couple elements here and there, there's so many VTubers out there. Sometimes certain elements don't shine enough and could be omitted from designs. But that's my hot take on VTuber logos.
I agree. Just outside of what you do on your own, or generally speaking, maybe you would like to be doing as well in a certain sense, but you never really got to it, like any sort of art style that pops to mind?
Oh my gosh. I want to do I want to be able to do like watercolor or painterly styles.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're so gorgeous. I think they're so dainty and fun. Um, for me, the worst part of drawing is sketching because
Oh,
I
yeah.
can't imagine things. So I need like 1,000 references. I need, a bunch of images of each detail so I can put them together. And I admire painterly styles so much because people can just start. They put paint on a canvas and they start building shapes from there. But
Yes.
for me, I have to block everything out. I have to be very mindful of doing my research to put things together. But one day I would love to attempt a painterly style. I think they're so fun. I think they're just beautiful.
I mean, considering that you have been in art for 3 years, it's already crazy. I think you will get there.
I hope so. And you flatter me. I feel like my growth, though I do pat myself on the back occasionally, looking at my older, I do cringe, which is
Mhm.
good. I feel like I wish I grew more in other aspects. Again, I
Mhm.
don't do art studies, which is, I slap my hands for that because I really should. I tell myself to go face the corner and think about what I've done because it would greatly improve my art if I had more fundamentals, but
Mhm.
I have none. So, it is what it is.
Yeah, practiced none in art studies.
Whenever I was in college, I took many anatomy and physiology courses for my degree,
Mhm.
and I have applied it more in art than I have in real life. So, you know what? My degree was for something, I guess.
Yes. It's that easy to study medicine so you can be better at
Yeah,
art.
just go into med school, man.
It's
Go
that
into
easy.
med school for the art and then drop out and become an artist. Don't worry about the debt.
Oh yeah, don't worry about it. When it comes to art, you already said uh, the aphantasia is a bit of a struggle, but
Aphantasia, yeah.
aphantasia, yes. Are there any other struggles that you have when you are creating art?
Having arthritis at the ripe old age, the ripe geriatric age of your early 20s.
Hmm.
Um, a lot of times my hands will swell and it really hurts to draw. And that's the biggest thing holding me back. My own body failing
Hmm.
me. I feel like I've had to put commissions on hold at least twice this year because my body was in such a bad condition that each day drawing made me feel worse and worse to the point where I couldn't really do any clean line strokes. Um, so I said, okay, I need to actually take care of my health. I need to do my stretches. I need to take a break.
Hmm.
And even now, on certain days when I lock in too hard, the next day my body is falling apart.
Oh no.
For me, it's the worst when it starts to rain or when the weather is cold. Um, my joints tend to seize up a good bit.
Hmm.
So during the summer times, things aren't as bad. I just need to be careful, and this is why arthritis and a bag of bones are part of my Twitch tags. The latter being requested by by my kind viewers.
Hmm. That's also why I come into your streams and redeem stretch every 1 or 2
Thank you,
hours.
thank you. And they are very helpful. I need to be more mindful about doing full body stretches though.
Hmm.
For a bit, I used to do
Hmm.
a like 10-minute stretch routine in the mornings, and then I got really sick and I stopped doing them.
Oh no.
And then I haven't picked it up since. And now I feel bad. But it is what it is.
Stretch is important. Also, health is very important.
Yes, take care of your health. Don't be like a stereotypical cringe artist and neglect your health until you fall apart.
As someone with very bad wrists and very bad bones, I agree.
Wrist gang.
Wrist gang. From not just art styles, but general people or movies or anything that really inspired you?
I don't necessarily think so. I think I grew up watching a lot of anime as a child, and I always thought it was so beautiful. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily think it fully inspired me. And in terms of media, I tend to to watch more action or thriller based genres. So there's not that much art in those, and I'm not the biggest
Mm-hmm.
gamer either. So I can't really say I enjoy art because of the media I consume. I think once I started picking up art 3 years ago, my appreciation for the craft has grown because I don't know, I developed empathy and I understand the process and the skill it takes to build up those skills. And it's
Mm-hmm.
don't compare yourself to the prodigy 14-year olds on Instagram that create masterpieces. But I see a lot of people that are in their late 20s or 30s, and being able to kind of scroll through their social media and seeing their journey and how they experiment. It's one of the beauties of being like a human being.
That is true.
Because despite how busy we are, being able to create things for the sake of creating an art is just such a wonderful thing to witness.
Well said.
And though my art isn't the most like expressive, it doesn't represent me. But I love looking at art that represents people that they create because, they felt a certain emotion and they wanted to put that on a canvas. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's like by far one of the most valuable things humans can do.
So creation as an emotional expression.
Yes.
That also sort of ties back to what apparently defines your art style mostly, which is intention. Because when you draw
Hmm.
emotionally, you put intention into your art.
Hmm. And again, I also enjoy
Mm-hmm.
creating for the sake of others. I enjoy the happy reactions I get whenever
Mm-hmm.
I provide um, an illustration for someone. They're like, "Oh my god, this is better than I could have ever imagined." It's a bit,
Agree on that.
um, it's a bit, self fulfilling,
Mm-hmm.
and a bit too selfish of a mindset, in my opinion. But I enjoy making people happy, and that's why I give so many free, I give so many free assets away. I enjoy drawing people and surprising them.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you did create the best emote in existence as well.
Which one's the best one in your opinion?
The shrimp.
Oh
It should be
gosh.
worth $1 billion at least.
Saf turned my emo into an NFT.
Oh no. So yeah. Um
Yeah.
I think that covers about all the questions I have history-wise for the basic showcase. We will get
Hmm.
to all of the other pictures down here in just a moment. That covers more questions. But before that, the I think we already found out that you don't really do art studies, and I think we can conclude that you just go directly into arting whatever you want to art. But
Yep.
now,
Um, I did my first one because of you, Saf. Just know
yes.
that it's all thanks to you.
So I have the very funny question of what is your least favorite art exercise?
Um, I think it would have to be anything regarding rendering.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
know why it is so difficult for my brain to grasp.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily do it as an exercise, but whenever I try to implement it in my pieces, I am terrible at it. I think I have a good grasp on line work and
Mm-hmm.
line density. Whenever I meet new artists and they ask for advice, I'd say 9 out of 10 times I tell them to work on their line weight because everything is way too. A lot of times their line work is too thin, and it has no balance to it. A lot of times you can show line weight to emphasize shadows or puffiness
Mm-hmm.
in ways you wouldn't necessarily with color. And I think it's something that gives a lot of life to your illustrations. Especially something for something like emotes, where when your
Mm-hmm.
image is so small, you need line weight to help create emphasis. For example, like the ears, or usually you would do the eyes, but you know it's a cat, so you don't have that as much.
Okay.
Or like making the flag more bold so it stands out against your backgrounds.
Mm-hmm. So basically,
Um,
because you don't like shading, you have started to just become really good at line art.
I don't know about really good, but I'm adequate at it. Shading in digital form just doesn't work for me. I enjoyed it a lot more whenever I was a like traditional artist and I just, pencil to paper.
Mm-hmm.
I think building up shadows was a lot easier that way, but once you implement other colors, it's a lot harder than I initially expected. Colors are hard. I don't like color studies as well. I don't like it. I don't like color theory. It's mean.
So from rendering, is it more lightning and all of the light effects that go into colors, or is it just the basic understanding of textures and surfaces that is particularly hard?
For me, it's primarily building up textures.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have a good general understanding of if light were to hit a character, where you would generally place it, but um, creating the texture to blend it out is what I struggle with the most, and which is why I do cell shade because it's just a
Mm-hmm.
line. I can call it a day. Um, oh yeah, I love doing thick shadows like that where
Uh-huh.
it's not necessarily a natural color, but it's a lot more saturated than the skin tone. It makes the shadows pop more.
But yeah, it's once again very cool. I also pointed that out in my other art interview. But basically, the way you solve problems gives your unique art style when people look at your things. You can see that so much in here. It's
It's
very cool.
hey, I don't know how to do this, so I'm gonna try and do this instead.
Yes,
Problem solving brain.
but that makes for a
Is it the
really cool
best?
art style. Yes.
It is certainly unique. I will say that it is. I don't see many art styles that do look like this.
And, usually I have the question written down to ask for your least favorite fruit, but you already drew an apple. So I assume you
Oh,
like
I did.
apples?
Yes, apples are probably like top 10. I wouldn't say top
Hmm.
5, but top 10 fruits. I like fruits a
Hmm.
lot, but they're expensive lately, so I haven't
Oh
been
yeah.
eating fruits.
What is your least favorite fruit?
My least favorite?
Hmm.
It's technically a gourd and it's not sweet, but bitter melon.
Ooh.
It looks like a cucumber, but with
Yes.
like diseases. I don't know if anyone's ever had bitter melon before, but it's foul. It's disgusting. If you can tell by its name, it's very bitter.
Okay, but would you draw a regular watermelon?
A regular watermelon?
Yes.
What do watermelons look like? It's just like an oval, right?
Pretty much, yeah. Do you think you could draw a regular watermelon in 60 seconds
60 seconds, okay.
without a reference?
Without a reference? Oh shoot, hold on. Okay.
That is the art challenge.
Okay, I know that they're like this shape generally. Sometimes they're circular.
But yeah, I'm very excited to see the 60-second watermelon that's probably like 120 seconds in by now.
Oh, I didn't start immediately. I had to pull up my iPad, so
That is
I think I
valid.
can have a little bit more time.
We shall be
What color? What
merciful.
color are they?
Green and
I guess I
wait,
think I'll just use like a multiply layer.
Are
Right?
watermelons red on the... No, they aren't red on the outside, are they? I think they're only red on the inside. I think
They're
they're
like
only green.
pink on the inside.
Pink? Oh, true. Pink, reddish.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
more of
know.
a pink, I think.
I would have went with
I
red,
don't know. I
actually.
don't eat that many watermelons.
Same.
They're too big. No one else eats them with me. Okay, I've stopped drawing, but I needed to add some
Mhm.
text.
Yes.
Here's my like really bad sketch of a watermelon.
I mean, it's okay. Beauty had to draw a peach from memory in 30 seconds.
I don't know what a peach looks like. I love peaches, but I don't know what peaches look like.
Same. I would have failed horribly.
I've worked with a couple agencies, one being Mythos. If anyone knows Mythos, I've worked with them. I have another really big company that whenever I got a message from them, I was like, "Is this a scam? Like, I don't believe you." But they technically haven't commissioned me yet, and I have a feeling they might request an NDA, so I will not talk about that. But I was
Yes.
very surprised. Same thing with
Hmm.
Pearl. I was like, "Is this a scam? Is like his fan commissioning this?" Because I couldn't believe that
Oh.
someone from a corpo group would commission little me.
There is the 60
Wow.
second watermelon.
Wow, watermelon.
I love watermelon. I think that is a pretty good watermelon.
I know it has like dark lines on it, and I remember they have some yellow. I don't remember where the yellow is supposed to be, but I know they have it like a sun patch is what they're called. And then I think because they're gourds, they have like the curly belly button umbilical cord that comes out of them. But that might just be that might just be pumpkins. I don't know if watermelons have that.
I don't know either, I'm afraid. Yeah, thank you for the 60-second watermelon. I'm gonna eat it now. Ba-ba-ba-ba. So, we have even more art.
Oh yeah, this is my before and afters.
Hmm. It's gonna be a bit interesting now, since this question probably hits different because you worked mostly with commissions very early on already, but did input from other people on, like, generally make it harder or easier for you to go through your art journey and get better?
The thing is, I don't feel like I've ever really gotten genuine input.
Hmm.
Um, I think the general communication that I've gotten has been people being polite and positive.
Hmm.
So I've never had someone actually critique my art. The only time I've gotten proper critique was I had made a VTuber model for Mr. Oswald, and I asked a model artist if they could go through my files, and then they proceeded to kind of annotate all my layers, the way I separated the model, and then they sat down with me and gave me proper advice and asked like, "Hey, do you know how to do X, Y, and Z?" And if I said yes, they would say good job. If I said no, they would explain it to me, and that's the most critique I've ever gotten.
Hmm.
Um, I'm the type of person where if a stranger is giving me advice, I don't really care because my immediate question would be, what are your credentials?
Hmm.
Because if they're a great artist, then I will take the advice and I will apply it. But like if they're not an artist, if they just give me a hodgepodge of like general advice, I'll you know, it doesn't really mean much to me. And of course, if you get like negative feedback from a client that's like, oh, can you revise X, Y, and Z? I feel like if you're taking those things to heart, maybe this isn't the best industry for you. Maybe you should just
Hmm.
create art for the sake of creating it for yourself. Because you have to realize that a lot of people imagine their assets or their artwork that they paid for in their own light. And while you necessarily might not like the light that they prefer, they're paying for a service and you should
Hmm.
fulfill that service. So I'd say for myself, I haven't really had any negative experiences with that. Um, the only time I've had negative experiences with clients is like before the art process, and they were just a bit crazy, to say the very least. Trans cat. The commissioner is actually trans, so yeah, they were very sweet, and I really enjoyed creating their little fox. But yeah, I don't think I've really had too many negative experiences with critique. And if someone's giving me advice, if it's good advice, I'll take it. It doesn't really hurt my feelings if someone's like, "Oh, you can prove in this manner." I'd say, "Damn, you're right. I will apply that."
I think looking at your 300 5-star reviews and all of the art you have, I think your fundamentals are bad. Have you tried drawing 50 boxes a day?
I should start. I need to do my fears and the shading. It's just I think a lot of artists are very sensitive when it comes to their art because I understand it's something you created with your blood, sweat, and tears. You created it with your hands, and being told, "I don't think this is good enough," or "I don't like this," can sting sometimes. But whenever you're creating art as a service, you need to have a bit thicker skin than that. You need to realize that people don't approach you with negative intentions a lot of times. They're doing it to be helpful. And sometimes if you don't like the advice, you can just say thank you and move on. And if it is good advice, it's a learning experience. Just take it as it is. 316 reviews on VGen.
Yes.
I never thought I'd get this far. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm scared why there's so many people here.
When, especially since you didn't art that long, and you just started out because it was fun and stuff, and you did emotes, but at what point did you just think to yourself, wow, I can actually art, especially with Aphantasia?
I'd say... Actually, I don't think I've ever had that thought. I think my biggest maybe I'm not too bad was whenever I made the live 2D glorp at the very top from the previous page. At first when I drew it, I was like, man, I don't know what I'm doing. Anytime, if anyone has ever worked with live 2D, it's like putting a puzzle together, but you're also creating the puzzle. And it's a very funky process if you don't understand rigging, which I do not. I would love to pick up rigging to make my live 2D better. But especially with this character that has a very unnatural pose, they're actually inspired by the Pokemon Mew, because the VTuber Carbon, they are a astrophysicist, I believe, in real life. So their entire theme is about, space and being an astronaut. And their chat pet is an alien cat. So it had to be very floaty. And all the toggles, not even toggles, but the limbs had to be very malleable. And while making it, I was like, I am completely washed. I should give up on art. Like, I have no clue what I'm doing. And then the moment I saw the rigger post a whip, I said, you know what? Maybe I have something worth selling. Maybe I'm not that terrible. And it was like one of the first moments where I really appreciated my own skills, because I've never seen my work come to life before. And it was a very, very beautiful experience for me. I felt like a mother giving birth. But yeah, by far, this is still probably one of my favorite things I've ever created. If you've ever seen Glorp move, they're an absolute cutie. The rigger did amazing. They did better than I could have imagined. I think that was probably the top moment. I was like, you know what? Maybe I'm not the worst.
Nice. I mean, this is very cute. You did amazing, that's for sure.
Thank you.
And I can also attest, because I remember you made Lurky's little chibi model once. I think as a raffle or just for fun. I cannot remember.
It was Inktober.
Inktober, yes. And I don't know whom Lurky sent it to, just when she considered getting it rigged, but then she decided to just get her full body instead. But the person she sent it to, I think, did say that the layer separation and everything was very well made.
Wow.
Oh yeah, it was actually to beauty.
Was it really?
Actually in
Then
chat
he...
right now.
Hi.
And I'm sure if you have any rigging questions, he is ready.
Thank you, thank you. So at the top of all my live 2D, I have rigger notes. So notes for the model, contact information, and what's it called? I think I named it like shortcuts. So pretty much, if I have any abbreviations, like L means left, R means right, T means top, B means bottom, you know, just in case the rigger doesn't know or they don't speak, you know, English well. And then I have hello rigger, and it's just a little note that says like, "Hi, I'm so honored to have you rig my work. Please let me know if anything needs to be fixed. Please let me know."
Most of the questions actually have been answered already.
I mean, you can always ask me again, and if I have any variations in the way I'd like to answer things, I can.
I have two more questions. One is your latest new finding when it comes to your art progress. Just anything that popped and it was like, oh yeah, this is good.
I think going back to the apple,
Yes.
I think it's by far one of the most impressive things I've drawn in the way everything is rendered.
Oh yeah, the rendering
So I
here.
pulled up several images of apples to decide how I wanted to color it, how I wanted to do the shading. I added like the little freckles, little dots at the top because I remember some apples have those freckles. I think Fuji's in particular. The shading for the inner flesh of the apple, having all that texture and the grooves, the little bugs instead of the seeds. Again, you can see my very particular line art style where everything has a lot of density. The corners and the deepest part of grooves are typically the thickest. And again, if you zoom in, you can see the scratchy brushes that I use.
Yes.
With the lines that I also use in my banner art. Just to provide extra texture.
This is just, it looks very biteable, so you did very well on the rendering.
Thank you, thank you. I think the only thing I'm missing is a lot of apples, like if you bite into the flesh, they kind of shine because they're juicy. And I wasn't quite able to catch that as well. This apple looks a bit dry, but you know, it's fine.
That's true.
Otherwise, I'm very happy with the flesh.
Still remarkable progress considering you did say you don't really do any sort of shading. Generally, just do cell shading.
Yeah, I think this is the first piece I've ever fully rendered. It's an Apple trend. You can kind of show like my other progress from when I first started. I feel like I have a good few examples.
Which one?
Like the emotes in particular. Those were the first things I've ever drawn, and then these are my most recent, my most recent emotes.
Yeah, you can tell like a lot of the. It looks a lot more controlled with the lightning and everything, and the cell shading just makes it look more realistic.
And another thing is, in the first examples, you can tell that I had no understanding of line weight.
Yeah.
Everything was one size.
No, there is a bit of size here and there.
It's small. Not meaningful enough, though.
Yeah, it wasn't intentional, I think, per se. Not as intentional as here, at least. Also, this piece is really cool. From your recent ones.
Oh, my evolution of Mr. Oswald.
Yes.
Yeah, I really like the 2024 piece of him. The eyes just glow in a certain manner and much more dynamic of a pose than I'm used to. On the eyes and the nose, I didn't have the brushes yet, but I tried to mimic the scratchy lines. So I still wanted to do it in the past. I just didn't have the the
Mm-hmm.
brushes to really do it for me. Oh, my
Debut slides. Mm-hmm.
evolution of debut slides. This was actually the first ever debut slide I've ever made, and I did it for free because I wanted to give it a shot.
Mm-hmm.
This one was based off of Hololive debuts, so I looked at
Mm-hmm.
a bunch of their talents and what their debut graphics looked like, and I tried to do a similar style because they're quite popular. And while it was fun, I feel like it lacked depth. You know, I did try to do the layered effect, but it just didn't translate very well because I didn't have enough intention. I just wanted to fill up space.
Mm-hmm.
In the newer versions, you can see a lot more layers that go into each piece. I still kept up with the journal like aesthetic, but it's a little bit more scrappy.
Mm-hmm.
Things look full, but they have their own place. Is how I'd phrase it. Yeah, it's messy, but everything still looks very organized, which is very fun to mess around with.
Mm-hmm.
I want to do more debut slides. They're so fun. It's so entertaining to do.
Yeah, and the schedule I think we also have here.
Oh yeah, my first schedule and then my most recent schedule. Again, everything's a bit more well incorporated. Um, the schedule text is a bit more cohesive with the art piece rather than just being placed at the top and kind of
Mm-hmm.
disregarded. The each day's schedule is a bit more well designed. It has, the charms hanging from her head, and it has her color palette and little diamonds. You zoom in, there's also little roses because she has roses in her hair. But yeah, and then the
Mm-hmm.
sparkles because her crown sparkles. And if you look at mine, like sure, there's just bamboo. There's really not much to it. It's just blue. It's blue and gold. And I had no clue what I was doing.
I think there's also a lot more texture, but very mindful place texturing going on.
Yes.
From the backgrounds here, the light effects here, the
Oh
details.
yeah, the drop shadows from
Mm-hmm.
the boxes.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot
Again, the metallic
sense.
effects.
Reminds me of how modern user interfaces, especially in games, are designed as well.
Oh, that's kind of true. I never knew that. I said I like this shape and I went with it.
Yes, because those look like clickable buttons, basically.
Hmm. Um, I think I did a shadow underneath each box, so it looks a bit more elevated from the background. While mine kind of just looks very flat.
Mm-hmm.
It has
Also,
little
there's
depth.
glow.
It still has the glows and the metallics that I like, but also
Mm-hmm.
the fonts don't really work. It doesn't blend well. Um, but for rubies, I took into consideration the visuals they tend to go for, and they have a mixture of very clear and strict fonts that are very straight and linear, but
Mm-hmm.
also a bit elegant. The font that I use for my schedule, I just said it looks good enough. I called it a day.
Fell.
Oh, also for
Mm-hmm.
each of her illustrations that she puts into the green screen, I have a shadow layer at the very bottom. Um, you can kind of tell on her illustration that it's much darker at the bottom. That was
Mm-hmm.
actually something I placed so that
Ah.
the weekly schedule, no matter what illustration she puts, the whites don't blend into the illustration.
Mm-hmm.
So, more intention there rather than just
Yes.
giving myself a frame. I just gave myself a frame and called it a day.
Yes.
I said, this looks good enough.
Yeah, that is true. There is no frame. It is just blended in. So yeah, well done.
Thank you, thank you.
So I think the takeaway here is basically it doesn't really matter when you start into art. If you do it a lot and you do it with intention, you will get somewhere.
And make what gives you happiness. Don't force yourself into a certain art style that you think is trendy or, worrying too much about others. While I was fortunate enough to kind of just jump into commissions, I think you should focus primarily on art that you want, art that you think people would want, and not just, you know, creating art screaming to the void, hoping for commissions, because at the end of the day, it is a business. And you need to have some understanding of how businesses work to be successful in this industry, especially customer service. If you don't have enough of that, it's going to be a hard time.
But yeah, I agree with that. And especially if it's just about art, commissions is just a part of what you can use art for, but it shouldn't define the primary use of art, unless you want it to, because there are no rules.
My biggest thing is if you want to start off, be a bit more sure of yourself before you open up commissions, because mixing your hobbies and a career can, very much kill your joy very quickly. I know a lot of people that immediately jump into commissions and then they go, why does no one commission me? My art sucks. And then they stop and they never draw again. They never, exercise their creative bones ever again because they feel like they don't have anything worthwhile to create. And I'd say the fact that you're creating is already a step above everyone else. You've started, and that's the biggest step. Just keep doing it.
Well said.
And if you do want to open commissions, the biggest question you should be asking yourself is who are you making this art for? Who is your intended audience? And lastly, would you buy this product? Because if you yourself wouldn't want this product, why would someone else want it? And how much are you willing to pay for it? Because there's a lot of artists that I see that don't necessarily offer anything unique. They use a lot of bases from other artists, or they don't have any intentions other than replication. And that will stunt you a lot more than you'd think, because just because you have a site doesn't mean you're promoting yourself well. At the end of the day, art, especially in the VTuber community, is based off of trends. And if you aren't able to think of new trends or hop onto certain bandwagons, or, and you're relying on bases or fan art, sometimes it will lag your career. And that's the cool part of being an artist. You can make literally whatever you want. Sometimes you can draw two frogs on an apple sharing some bugs.
Yes. Rose had a question earlier about art in general. What to do if I have several art styles from other people I like and I don't know what to do? What's your opinion on that?
As in, you have a art style that you want to adapt? Or is it not sharing like where to pick up art or like how to start? From what your current art style is, whatever is most similar. Because if you're trying to only mimic art styles that are very different from yours, I think you'll have a very hard time because you already have a very shaky foundation. As a beginner, how to start? Yeah, I'd say do art studies of particular artists. So pretty much pulling up their portfolio and then trying to recreate those images using whatever techniques you're familiar with. Sometimes that's no technique at all, and that's completely fine. You just pick up your brush and you try to mimic. And after completing several art studies on different artists, see which one you gravitate towards the most. Which one did you have the most fun creating? Which one felt the most natural to you? And I'd say go to that. For me, I tried to pick up rendering whenever I first started drawing, and I hate those pieces. I think they look awful. And it was because I was picking up a style that didn't feel natural to me. Though I still very much respect painterly styles, I've realized that they're not really my forte. After a lot of experience, I've been able to pick up those styles a lot more, but I still enjoy cell shading a lot. It's something I can do quickly. It's something I find fun. I think it's nice to see straight lines. Because a lot of people don't necessarily do vector art or enjoy cell shading because it looks too two-dimensional to them. So it's a niche that I've found works for me. Because there are people that like cell shaded art and they'll go to you for it because it's a niche that no one's really tapped. Draw a lot, try a lot. Yeah. It's a lot of experimenting.
Yes.
When you're first learning, it's all experimental. It takes a while for you to know what you like. I'd say it took me a good year and a half to be more certain of what I wanted to create. I'd say a lot of my early art doesn't well represent what I enjoy creating because I was just testing things out. I was mimicking other styles. I was trying a lot of things out. And I feel like it made me a more well-rounded artist because I tried so many things out. I still remember a lot of those techniques despite not applying them regularly now. So even if I do need to replicate those things, I still have the muscle memory of how to do it. And don't be like me. Do some studies; they will help you. learn to draw shapes, learn to shade, learn how to blend colors, learn the color palettes.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would be my general advice.
I think that is also a very good direction to go towards the so dreaded fundamentals. When you talk about boxes, colors, and shading already.
Yeah.
The best fundamental, of course, and the most important one, and probably the easiest for you, is intention. So we're gonna start with that one. You already talked about references a lot, like using them, and basically the way you actually design things is not by imagining, but by using them. But would you say, how should one work with references? What is the way you apply them?
So, it depends on the type of piece I'm working on. Usually, 10 out of 10 times I'm working with a VTuber creating assets for them. So I already have a great reference, which is their model or their design sheet. And the thing that I feel like helps me the most from slums is looking at other people's assets and art and pulling inspiration from that. So I have my own Discord server that's just me and Mr. Oswald, where I put in a bunch of varying art poses, assets, whatever that I think looks nice. It might not even be a style that I would ever gravitate towards. For example, my stream graphics are very elegant, I'd say. They're not very cute leaning. It's not very while they have round elements, there's a strictness to them. Everything's encased in metal, you know. Things aren't as cutesy. But I will still look at very pastel styled assets and take inspiration from those because I like seeing how people implement shapes, how they apply, different layouts, where they take inspiration from, their clients' models and how they apply that information. And I feel like you can learn a lot from other artists. Seeing what works for them and how you can apply that knowledge into your own creativity has helped me a lot in particular. And that's the way I developed my style in graphic arts. I know that, things like Google and Pinterest have gone to absolute hell.
Yes.
The majority of it is AI, and it's painful. It is so painful.
It really is.
But there is a site called Refern. I can copy and paste that to you. It
Yes,
pretty
please.
much uses most sources from Pinterest and other image sharing apps like Pinterest, but they have a AI filter that blocks it out.
Nice.
So I've been on the site to look for other references recently, and I think out of all the time I've spent on it, I've only seen maybe 3 AI images accidentally slip past their detector.
That is crazy.
So it's a great resource if you want to avoid AI because things like Google and Pinterest are miserable to use now.
Mm-hmm.
They also have a lot of IRL images, and as much as looking at illustrations from other artists can be helpful, sometimes looking at bodies and architecture and photography can help you the most. um, Whenever I first started as an artist, I found that it was really hard to understand how to look at a real life reference and apply that into my art style, primarily because I didn't have a style at that point. So even though I had an image of the pose I wanted, I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't translate that into an illustration. So I primarily used other illustrations to help me imagine that. So I would have to look at like, oh, let me look at this chibi pose to create, this chibi illustration.
Mm-hmm.
But now that I do have a lot more understanding on how I want to create art, looking at IRL images is a lot more helpful than other people's art, because if you're looking at other people's art, you're kind of mimicking a little bit too much. And if you're a beginner, it's really helpful. But the more you want to develop your own styles, it's really hard to keep your style consistent if you're using other people's art as references. And Reference is really great because it has a wide variety of IRL pictures, a lot of logos, fonts, architecture, other illustrations other than just like generic anime. You can really see a lot. You can see a lot of styles. I highly recommend. But yeah, that's how I kind of go about looking at references now.
Mm-hmm.
It's sadly I hate Twitter so much, but there's so many great art tutorials on Twitter that I
Mm-hmm.
still feel inclined to use because I can't really find any other social media that recommends me art tutorials the way um, Twitter does, specifically live 2D art and rigging tutorials. My God, there's so many crack JP artists that kindly teach people how to separate their layers. Shout out to
Yeah.
them. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
if you're a beginner, I recommend starting off with other references that mimic the style that you'd want to start with, and then gradually leaning off of that and getting onto more real life based examples, because you're trying to replicate life. That's most people's intentions with art. At least I think so.
Mm-hmm. So also just not only get the references for what you want to make in a moment, but also collect everything that you like, basically.
Yeah. Even if you don't think you'll like it, save it, because who knows? Maybe you'll change your style in the future, or there's elements of said style that you want to replicate.
Hmm. Do you have any specific way of working through references? Let's say when you had the apple, did you do any helping lines, or do you just look very close?
Oh, like, do I do boxes and like
Hmm.
circles to help create shapes? I try to, but a lot of times I don't follow the
Hmm.
guidelines. I find that if I use guidelines, I use the liquefy and warping tool a lot more. Um, so in my artist journey,
Hmm.
I drew a lot from the ages of like maybe 10 to 13. And in that phase, I created. I started off with anime and cartoons, and then I morphed into realism because I thought, being able to draw people was
Mm-hmm.
really neat. And obviously, that's the next step after anime. You go into realism for some reason.
Yes.
Um, so because I'm so bad at imagining images in my head, I liked looking at uh, specifically photography of faces, and I love drawing faces. And I think because I did that in my adolescence, I'm very good at mimicking. I had a client request a Blue's Clues themed chat pet, and
Mm-hmm.
as you can see, I'm quite good at mimicking styles. It's just something because I can just look at an image and recreate it. It's very easy for me to just do things without guidelines. And I think that's my biggest fault in my artistic career is I find mimicking is easy, and because imagination is hard,
Yes.
I'm a lot less creative out of my own brain. And the biggest thing I want to avoid is replicating other people's art unless it's requested, like something like Blue's Clues dog. Um, so it's very hard for me to really go about guides because I can kind of map things out very well already, and I find that by using guides, because I'm not too intentional with the guides, like I'll start off with a circle and I can kind of give myself the symmetry of like the head shape. It
Mm-hmm.
ends up looking a bit morphed because I don't actually place the guides in their proper spots. I think that's the thing I've never been intentional with is my guides. For example, in the apple, I drew the top of the apple before I drew the bottom. Like I didn't draw a circle. I did draw the entire apple before I drew the frogs.
Mm-hmm.
And then I drew the entire shape of the frogs before erasing them, just to make sure I had the proper shape. But I never drew out like a circle for the eyes or like an oval for the frog face. They kind of conflict way too much with my head because I am so awful at imagining things. Um, the shape of the guidelines take form and end up morphing my image because I follow them way too strictly to the point where things don't have a proper fluidity to them because in reality there's no harsh lines. Everything is soft. And when I follow lines, everything becomes way too strict. I think that's the best way to explain it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I do massive blobs. My sketch work tends to be very, very messy because I need to see the shape before I can proceed. So my process tends to be I use a very sketchy brush. And I know it's a very bad habit, but I do use chicken scratch for my sketching. And then I take an eraser to kind of define the lines further rather than just having sketch work being clean and organized and intentional. I think that's why my sketching is the least favorite step for me because I don't know how to be intentional with it just yet. Well,
Mm-hmm.
everything else is very intentional with like my lines and the way I use color.
That's a pretty good summary of about all the questions I would have had already.
Oh, sorry, I rambled too much.
No, it just worked through it pretty cleanly, so I'm very glad for that actually.
Thank you, slash, you're welcome.
Also, what you said about like the way you go about it, even though in the other interview I was talking as well about the step of hey, how you approach references, it's a different process, but the result is the same, which is basically don't copy it, just get it done first and just move it to the right place when you see the shape.
Mhm.
And even with your workflow, you still do the same, which is
I'd
just
say,
get the shape first,
yeah,
somehow.
try your best to avoid copying.
Mhm.
whenever you're making art for yourself. But if you're doing studies, you know, and understanding styles and fundamentals, especially studies on other people's art and trying to understand why they did what they did, copying is very important there. But once you develop your style and you're like several months into art, that's when I think it's a safer time to diverge. I think a lot of people are afraid of trying to mimic other people's art because they don't want to get called out for mimicking a pose, because a lot of people are very, very upset with things like that. But I think a lot of young people, like a lot of my friends that picked up art when they were a child, they looked at like Pokemon illustrations and they traced them. And being able to understand the flow of lines through tracing is what taught them how to create their own artwork. And I don't think people should be afraid of doing that. You know, of course, credit the artist that you're mimicking. Don't do it for commissions, of course. If you're still in your tracing and mimicking phase, do not open commissions. But also, don't be afraid to learn from others. I will never understand the perspective of like, do not try to learn from me. Do not try to learn from my style because I want my style to stay unique. So don't be afraid to learn from others, despite the opinions of certain people.
You want to tell me this is not the most unique art in existence?
Oh my god, the Padarus. This is all from 1 year. This many people wanted a Padarus, yes. Okay?
Uh-huh.
Especially when you're talking about VTubers, there's so many trends, you know. There's very little individuality, and sometimes you need to embrace that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, Pride Month, hell yeah. Pride, yoo-hoo!
Yes. Trans rights.
Actually, I think the Padarus were more like 3 weeks, not even a full 4, because after or close to Christmas, people stopped commissioning them anyways.
Yes, classic Christmas.
I can't wait to do more Padarus this year. They're so fun.
There's one more question I have for the topic. And you sort of already answered it, I'm afraid, already as well. It's like, you have my notes.
Didn't you send me your notes? I didn't actually read through all your questions, but I think you did send me your questions.
I did so, but some of them are not written as I'm gonna ask them, so they're cryptic. Also, I've deleted some.
Hiding things from me.
What did I want to ask? Yeah, right. Especially when it comes to intention, more like a learning thing as well, or growth even when you are good already. Do you think there is importance in basically sort of forcing yourself to draw in different art styles to grow? Or do you think it's okay to just continue what you do?
I think it's important to broaden your horizons, even if you don't enjoy or intend to recreate that style in the future. I think every single art style can teach you something. Even if you don't plan to use all those techniques at once. For example, if you're mimicking, I don't know, like the Disney style, even if you don't plan to replicate that art in the future, I feel like the shapes that they use are very unique and you can apply that elsewhere. You may not like it now and it may not be fun, and, you know, don't push yourself too hard. That's how you get burnt out. Yes. But I think broadening your horizons and understanding the intentions of other artists will make you a better artist. And it helps you evolve as an artist as well, because if you only stick to one style, you don't ever experiment, you'll become stagnant. And, you know, trends always evolve, styles change. Even if you aren't studying other people's art, I feel like no matter what, you will change as well. Sometimes it's for the worse, sometimes it's for the better. I think if you're more equipped with others' experience with varying styles, you'll improve for the better.
And with all the words said to the fundamental of intention, do you have anything in particular that you wanna share with the... I was about to say class, but I guess it's more like bullies in chat.
Study fundamentals, but also don't force yourself to do things that you don't think are fun. I think it's nice to experiment, you know, with colors, and studies can be fun. But if you don't enjoy drawing shapes, don't draw shapes. If you don't, you know, enjoy rendering, don't force yourself to do it. Art should be about your creativity. It should be fun. And if it starts to feel like a chore, maybe take a break. Because if you stop forever, what's the fun in that? Don't be like me and stop for like 10 years and then pick up art again and go, well, shit, I had so much time that I could have been improving or experimenting and developing my style. And don't look back when you're like 60, 70 years old going like, damn, I should have been more creative. I wish I would have honed that skill and that passion and properly expressed myself. When you're old, we only have so much time. Just start now. It might be daunting, but just start. Set aside like 15 minutes a day. Just do a little something. You don't have to do a whole lot.
Remember, Calynn just did that in 3 years.
Yeah, this is 3 years. If you look at my befores and afters, just do it. Just draw Among Us. It fits every shape. That is also true.
So yeah, lesson here. If it's fun, do it. If it's not fun, don't force yourself.
Yeah, just do whatever you want.
Yep, there are no rules.
Your inspiration's Among Us? Huh?
I mean, I've made a 3D Among Us throwable.
Oh no. I've made an Among Us emote before. It wasn't for myself, it was a commission. It was awful. But I did.
I think that covers the fundamental of intention pretty well, which I think, going by what we have discussed, might be what defines your art style the most. However, it would be too easy if I just ask you what you're very good at, so why don't we go to colors and lighting and shading and reflection and subsurface scattering next? Those are fancy words.
Most of the colors I use are color picked off of design sheets because I suck at colors. So in my banner style particularly, what I do is I color pick off the reference, and I either turn up the saturation or lower it. For the hair, I turn up the saturation. For the eyes, I turn up the saturation. But for the skin, I lower the saturation because I think building up the shadows and a more saturated color than the skin looks interesting. That's why I like it. Steel colors, exactly. I struggle with colors a lot because, once again, my lack of fundamentals. I primarily use screen, add, and multiply to do the shading for me, rather than having to think about colors with my own brain. Because I know she has curly hair, I drew them in segments. And because I know the way light hits a circular object, it kind of rounds things out. Some of the other shading is not as intentional, but I like the way it looks, so I chose to do it despite not it being accurate.
I think here you can tell that you're trying out new things with these as well.
Oh yeah, I enjoy really dark line work, but I wanted the eyes to pop more than having them flat. So I used a very kind of light opacity brush, went over the entire eye, and then afterwards I used an eraser to remove the additional colors so it has the illusion of line art, even though it's a full block of black.
That's definitely one way to do it.
Yeah,
I think you
I
can tell
use the
here.
eraser a whole lot.
I think you can tell here a bit.
Oh, where it's erased.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I also took a low opacity eraser to remove the ends so that they're a little bit more blurred as well.
Mm-hmm. I see you there, little stray pixel. Just know
Zoom
you're
out, zoom
very
out, zoom
loud.
out. Zoom out, zoom out. Once again, if you zoom in on the eye bags, there's the scratchy brushes because I
Yes.
love that texture. I think it looks so nice. I think it's so
Mm-hmm.
fun.
But yeah, you can tell you're still very much growing in every direction.
Yeah, I'm still very unsure
Mm-hmm.
of the style I want to progress in. But you know what? It is what it is. You just gotta continue. Yeah, I like to desaturate the skin tones a lot and then apply the saturation in the blushing and also the shadows. So if you look at her hands, they're very pink. Same thing with my hands, they're also very pink. I also use the saturation mainly for building shadows, but because it's like underneath the cup, you can see the redness. If you look at your own hands, you have more redness in your fingertips usually. Most
Mm-hmm.
people's hands aren't like one complete shade.
How do you go about lightning? Do you just
Because
have...
they're
Mm-hmm.
banners, I usually just have overhead lighting and it
Mm-hmm.
goes straight down. I don't really do anything too dynamic. Um, in the Apple reference, it's mostly from top left where it hits the
Mm-hmm.
most. There's some shading at the bottom of the apple where, let's say there was a desk, the light would reflect off the desk and onto the bottom. So it's still
Mm-hmm.
darker overall, but there's still some rays of light hitting it back. And then, for example, parts of the core that are being eaten, the areas that stick out the most will have the light source hitting it,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to, you know, the areas where they're more bitten and they're deeper, darker crevices. I also wanted to use a bit of the shading to kind of highlight the shape of the frogs more. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, around the cheeks, around the eye sockets, which aren't, you know, accurate to the apple, but it's having fun with your art, you know. There's two frogs looking at each other. You gotta be a little
Yes.
goofy. Don't take your art too seriously. Just have fun.
I assume, did you draw this from a picture, or how did you approach this one in particular with the lightning?
So I looked up, I think, 4 to 5 different images
Mm-hmm.
of eaten apples. Um, Initially, the colors were a lot darker because I had gone with I think they're called like red delicious, where they're all like a deeper red and they have little color variation. But I found that it looked a little bit boring, so I went with I think they're either Gaia's or Fuji apples, where they have the yellowish orange spots throughout them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I started applying a bit more color variation to the tops and bottoms of the apple. And then I looked at more images of apples where they have their dotted freckles, and I thought that looked cute, so I just added it. It's not one specific apple that I mimicked. I pulled references for about, let's say, like 5 images of apples. Red Delicious are the least delicious. I agree. They suck. They're awful.
Yes.
Because I can kind of imagine the coloring of the apples more, I was able to confidently use several images to create the apple I wanted rather than mimicking one source.
Mm-hmm.
However, because the flesh is a little bit more complex and I had no idea how to approach to the fleshy bits of the apple, it's mainly one image that I took inspiration from for the shading.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the image that had the most lighting contrasts. A lot of the images I found for the flesh of the apples had too bright of a light source, so not many shadows were seen. And I was worried that my apple would look too flat if I tried to mimic that. So I found one that had a lot of bite marks. It had a lot of crevices, and that's how I found the source for my for my
Mhm.
apple. But yeah, that's kind of how that's probably the best example of how I would go with looking at references.
Mhm. Yeah, work with the references you have. It's how
Yeah.
you approach light as
And for
well.
things you're not as confident on, you can lean on them a little bit more closely. The things that you're confident in, you can pull from more references.
Mhm. So one thing you have not drawn anywhere, as far as I can see it, is basically intentional reflection of certain things.
Yes, I
Mhm.
suck at reflections.
That is very fair.
Reflections and
Mhm.
landscapes are things I have no experience with.
Mhm. But I think going back this apple, it probably won't take very long until you can do that too.
It's more so I don't know how to study
Mhm.
reflections very well, but landscapes, while I've tried in the past, I just didn't find it as fun
Mhm.
because I think nature is very chaotic, and trying to understand landscapes is very confusing. So I sent you the one time I've used a reflection.
Yes.
It's very silly. It's a dragon that accidentally got teleported into a Denny's parking lot. This is a meme from a D&D campaign that Mr. Oswald was part of. And while I was listening, I decided to draw that. As you can see, my very chicken art, or not chicken art, chicken scratch line work whenever I'm like trying to build shapes. It's been a bad habit I've had since the past, but will I ever grow out of it? Who knows? Probably not. I would love to get into rigging. I feel like it's a little bit more
Shapes. We would be leaving colors and
shapes.
go to shapes. But it would be too easy if we just start with, the technical boxes and circles. What if we just start with
Mhm.
soft bodies? Things that can squish in animation that you need to imagine how they form. For example, you said you like drawing
Mhm.
humans and that kind. I like your
I
animals.
do. So
Mm-hmm.
humans are easy in certain aspects. For example, one of the things I used to draw a lot whenever I was in my first drawing phase between like 10 and 13 is whenever I would get bored in class, I would just draw my hand. So I'm really good at drawing left hands because that's like all I drew for, several hours a day in school. I have no issues with hand anatomy. I think faces are by far the most interesting because they're so unique from person to person. And I'd like to experiment with my style more to be able to replicate more than one face type because right now I primarily lean on the younger adolescent faces. To be fair, that's kind of just what the demand is because that's what most VTubers go for.
Mm.
Um, but I think drawing mature faces is also really neat. I only have a few, and they're all from Mr. Oswald's like D&D campaign. I think this is like an example of a more mature face that I've drawn. And
Yes.
I think it's fun. I think it's nice. My issue is I don't have much experience with them and I don't have the time to experiment very often because there's just no demand for it. No one likes the old man yaoi. I can't I can't divulge into it because so much of my time is spent doing commissions. I rarely ever work on my own art or things that I'd want to draw. Which sounds very spoiled because oh no, artist gets too many commissions, but I don't get much time to experiment anymore or draw the things that I actually want to draw. So I feel like I'm a bit stunted in my development because of that. Because if you only draw what's in demand, it tends to be a very strict style. It's again, VTubers don't have the most diversity. So you're very much drawing cat girls and, foxes, as you can see above
Mm-hmm.
or below. It's a very strict style.
So basically, you solve soft bodies by knowing anatomy and by not needing it.
Yes. Go to school, go to med school, learn about bodies and apply that.
Yes. A very easy
Learn about the
solution.
skeletal system so you know how bone structure works.
3-step program.
It's very simple, just go to med school.
Yes. I assume basic boxes and stuff is something you will probably enjoy a lot. But how do you go about perspective in them?
So I actually don't really work with perspective very often because so many of the actual illustrations I do are close up or things like emotes. The only time I'll ever use like proportion rules is like the rule of thirds is something I use very often for my graphic design, where I try to imagine, what the focal points of the layout should be, what should be the primary focus, what should be, minimalized. And when it comes to designing VTubers, sometimes you need to break those rules and make things a bit more symmetrical, even though it's not as fun. But you're only allotted so much space, so you have to make do. Not really shapes or perspective, but for example, for designs, trying to fill up space. So, for example, I told the client that the forehead felt very, very empty. So we decided to add a, hold on, let me make sure like I'm pronouncing the right word, a hoge, which is the little hairpiece that sticks out. Typically, it represents an aloof character in anime, and it suits this fox. And taking other design elements like the hairpins or the belt loop around the neck, and then the tail is like a one-to-one recreation of the VTuber, because they said they wanted the tail to look like it plopped off their model and then a child was born. So being a bit intentional with how you space out elements that incorporate their design. Because I don't work with like full body or illustrations, I haven't used perspective very often. My primary goal is just to fill up space. I don't like leaving things empty because, with the way our brains work nowadays, where everything is so fast paced, having more visual stimulation for your viewer is always a bit more enticing. As you can see by the several GIFs that I have playing on my art screen.
And all of the frogs.
Yeah, all my frogs that wiggle with me. I don't use boxes very often because the philosophy that I've always heard is nothing in nature is straight. Nothing's like perfectly 90 degrees. Nothing is perfectly aligned. So
you heard it. Nothing in nature is straight.
Nothing is straight. So whenever you have too many straight visuals, it creates too harsh of an image. I tend to lean towards more bubbly imagery in my overlays, but a lot of times for certain clients, I will use very strict pointy lines, following like the philosophy of like hostile architecture. Round shapes are welcoming, pointy shapes are not inviting. Depending on their personality, I will kind of gravitate towards whatever I think best suits them and their personality and their VTuber's persona. I think that's the best way I can describe my intentions with shapes. Yeah, for example, this person, they describe themselves as like very bratty, very catty, a bit smug. They gave me no pose reference. They said literally do whatever you want, but this is the personality of my character. I trust you. So, hand over the face, smug expression, holding a flower.
I mean, it ties closely, or rather, it's basically not really something your art style would come across. But when it comes to very complex structured shapes, for example, yeah, photorealism is one, nature themes like trees and stuff that are very detailed, or mecha, I think, is the closest you might be leaning into when it comes to that. How would you approach that, or did you approach that in the past?
I've had minor experience with armor.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very cool. I think it's really fun to play with those more strict structures where nothing is soft, nothing is flowy, everything
Mm-hmm.
is rigid and strong. But it's hard. It especially with rendering things like armor is very, very difficult. I don't think I've
Mm-hmm.
ever had any experience with mecha, but I have with some armor. I think the closest example I'll have is whenever I drew armor for my chibi model. It's not done
Mm-hmm.
yet, but I can still send it.
Sneak peek?
Who knows if I'll ever finish this because I've started this last year and I haven't touched it since.
BB Calynn 2028?
Oh, maybe one day. This is the closest I have to armor. Like for
Mm-hmm.
example, the metal legs, the shoulders, the chest
Mm-hmm.
piece. They're still round, despite
Mm-hmm.
being armor. So I think no matter what, I will always try to approach things with softness.
Mm-hmm.
Things like nature and landscapes, I really have no experience with because I find the process so daunting. I have not started, but one day I will like to pick it up. I would like to pick up oil painting. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's very. I would like to follow some Bob Ross tutorials. Maybe I'll do that one day on stream. I'll do like a
Yes,
hand cam and I'll paint following Bob Ross.
absolutely. But going by this, I will personally say the answer to the question would be basically you just look at the complex shapes as details to do individually.
Yes. I feel like I look at details and I break them down one by one in my
Mm-hmm.
head before I try to meld them together. And I feel
Yes.
like because of that, sometimes things aren't as cohesive as I'd like them to be. For example, the
Mm-hmm.
pockets don't look like they fit too well onto the belt.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it feels very flat because of those things. But nonetheless, it is a process.
Mm-hmm.
Or like the shoulders. I feel like the shoulders also look very flat. I guess it's time for me to completely restart on the chibi model since I've grown as an artist.
I mean,
Oh man.
BOT's wisdom was delete your art.
Delete my art. Okay. I remember that part of Beauty's interview. It was like the best advice Beauty can give is delete your art and restart. Oh, but I've started on Mr. Oswald's chibi model like 3 times now because of that. Because I'm like, oh my god, but I have new skills that I can apply to this. But a large part of being a good artist is knowing when to stop. Because sometimes
Yes.
building upon something or deleting and restarting, sometimes you just need to stop and let it go.
Yes.
Sometimes things need to die. Don't give up on art, but give up on the piece, please.
Also pretty eyes. And
Oh,
scratchy.
thank you. It's scratchy eyes, yeah.
That is some very pretty. Telling you, Chibi Calynn 2028.
2028. It might be just enough time for me to finish it. Will it ever get rigged? Who knows, though.
But yeah, I think that's pretty much, yes, that's about all things I have for shapes, because the rest was answered already.
Yahoo!
And we've also gone a bit into, like, not just a bit. We've actually covered about everything about composition already, too. Because, as you've
The
basically
answer is
said,
I don't have any fundamentals. There's no composition. There's no shapes. There's nothing.
but here's the thing, when we
I
talked
put
about
shapes on a canvas and I
colors,
call it a day.
when we talked about colors and shapes, every topic we went into, you eventually turned over to become composition.
It's hard to start something without pulling other elements into it as well.
For example, you said about placements during shape and lightning, just the placement for colors. You combine those.
Mm.
One thing maybe, how do you work about... Do you just go visually by the overall impact, or do you, for example, just look at values only or similar strategies?
For what per se?
When you do the entire composition, like here, for example, do you check the values afterwards, or do you just work through it?
I kind of work through it. Initially, I had the offline days as completely grayed out, so they actually had like no saturation to them. But the client felt that it was a bit too stark of a difference. So what I did was I just grabbed the color from the other days, slapped that onto the offline, lowered the saturation, and lowered the darkness just a little bit. That's how I typically work with colors rather than pulling them off a color wheel. I mess with the saturation a whole lot. I would like to get better at messing with hues, but that is my biggest hurdle when it comes to colors.
Yes.
Balancing hues and making sure things are still cohesive despite the differences is daunting. Again, I need to
Yes.
study color theory, but it's one of those things I don't know how to start, so I just haven't.
Yeah, so basically it's just going by the overall picture from what you see and your references.
Another thing is sometimes I will take the reference art that clients provide and use like a color layer. I'll pick off the, for example, I think I used the hair in her VTuber model, and then I use the color setting on my drawing software and place it on top of the other assets to kind of give me a proper feel and more visualization of what those colors would look like applied to those shapes that the client liked. Because again, I can't really imagine what those would look like without a reference. So I find that very helpful of using the color layer setting. Yeah, I think that's something that's helped me a lot recently. Is whenever I discovered that the color layer was a thing. I still don't know how to use it very well, but it's helped me understand how to use colors a bit more by looking at other references and trying to apply different colors onto it.
I mean, that's also very valuable in a sense because, sure, as you've said, hues just isn't really your strength yet and you can't really imagine, but what you do is just use the fact that you're in digital art and just see for yourself how it looks and then adjust from that.
60% of digital art is knowing your software and knowing your tools. Once you know how to use your tools, you will grow significantly.
That reminds me, it goes less into composition, but it was something very specific that I wanted to ask you. Because I remember you don't really draw, like for some pieces, I've seen you do this, you don't really draw your line by hand.
Oh, in Procreate, it gives you if you draw a line and you hold it before where you would typically pick off your pen, you can manipulate the line shape. And because I tend to go for very thick lines, it's really helpful. And because I don't really have a sketchy style, I tend to stick with more strict lines. Because even for the apple, where I didn't use that feature at all, it still looks like I used the feature. Didn't know that feature existed. It is so helpful. It is wonderful. It's only on Procreate. I don't know if any other software that has that feature. Pretty much if you draw a circle and you hold it at the point where you would have picked up your pen, at the very top there is an option that says like circle or oval, and you can manipulate the shape further. Next time I'm on stream, I can probably show you a little bit. It's very, very helpful, especially if you do, you know, thick line art like I do. It's pretty much like working with vectors, but less complex.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's basically another thing I just got reminded when you said about digital art. Especially since you
Use your
also said you
tools.
do the stretchy lines for sketches. Probably here not as much. No,
Um,
I think you can still see it a little
no,
bit.
it is very sketchy for those. But because they're D&D portraits, I
Mm-hmm.
purposefully I had another sketch underneath that layer, and then I used a very sketchy brush to maintain the appearance of a sketch.
Mm-hmm.
Those are actual sketches where they're quite messy. The model,
Mm-hmm.
I did use very sketchy lines, but I did go with a eraser afterwards. You can kind of see it
Mm-hmm.
here and there
Yes.
where lines are cut off
Mm-hmm.
to clean it up and actually give it shape.
But you can see the individual lines here very well.
It's very, very messy. I have very bad sketches.
Yee. Yes. Also
Yeah.
remember to follow Calynn. Like that was all I have for the fundamentals. I have a few more fun questions and out of context questions.
Okay.
One of them, I do know the answer already because you already dropped that, so I'm gonna make it just a tiny bit harder for you.
Oh no.
You're no longer allowed to choose the answer of hands. You now have to choose between 25 ears or 3 frames of an animated horse. Which would you rather do?
3 frames of an animated horse, like a
Yes.
running cycle.
Yes.
Ears, easy. Ears is no problem. I'd rather look at like 50 images of ears and draw a bunch of them than draw a horse. Horses are built so weird. You don't understand. They're funky looking creatures.
Oh no, I understand. I can't imagine
I
animals
was
at
actually
all.
commissioned to draw a it was a unicorn, but you know, horse body.
Yes.
And I had to say, I'm so sorry. I cannot do this for you. As much as I would love to make your assets, I cannot in good faith take your money and give you a terrible product in return.
Uh-huh. Horses be difficult.
Horses are just weird. I've drawn cows before, but horses are weird. I don't there's something so uncanny about the way they're built. Especially like the non-muscular horses that are very thin. They don't look right to me. I don't like them. They scare me a little bit.
Uh-huh.
And I say that as a Texan, and I've been around horses. I don't like them. Not a fan.
Horse is scary.
Yeah, they're too strong. They're not predictable enough.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, no
Yes.
horse illustrations for me.
No horses. 25 years. If I gave you the chance of instead drawing 50 hands, would you rather do that than ears?
Ears are really easy though. I don't have any issues with drawing ears. Like even very intricate ears, I feel like they're quite easy to shade. Um,
Hmm.
and the compositions of them aren't too complex. I feel like I could knock out 25 ears before I finish even 10 hands.
Do you
So
want
I'll
to
go with
draw
the
one
ears.
ear? Just to
I
show
could draw
how
an
it
ear for
looks?
you.
Yes.
Hold on, I would have to pull up an image because I don't. It's been many years since I've taken anatomy courses on ears. Okay, I need an image.
Uh-huh.
Let me get my art glove. I need a new art glove. I have a hole in my pinky finger.
Oh no. I mean, isn't that usually good? Because,
Ventilation.
yes. Is there any bad advice you hear a lot where you usually just go, no, that's bad advice? Not for you personally, just in general to artists.
Mm, this isn't advice per se, but I think there's a lot of drawing or rendering tutorials that I think are really, really bad. Um,
Okay.
for example, a lot of books that teach people how to draw, I feel like they're making things a lot more complex than they need to be,
Hmm.
or they don't properly explain how to do things. And I look at it and I kind of like squint my eyes and go, why would you tell a beginner this? This is not helpful at all.
Uh-huh.
I especially feel that way towards certain coloring tutorials.
Hmm.
I feel like it's just giving people the wrong advice.
Okay, so basically just overcomplicated tutorials. Oh,
Overcomplicating things and also explaining to people in the wrong steps. And I
mm-hmm.
feel like it kind of hinders your growth more than helps, if that makes sense.
So I personally think if you really want to draw a face, the first thing you gotta do is study a skull, draw the entire skull, because then you don't have to shade, and because if you just draw an
Okay,
anatomically
but that
correct
is some
layered
advice
face.
of like I understand studying skulls is important, but
Yes.
it's the approach is really silly. And my
uh,
example for this is the way we see dinosaurs is 100% not how they look because
yes.
not historically, but within like the last 30 years, a lot of depictions of dinosaurs, they have kind of shrink wrapped the
Uh-huh.
the skin onto the skull, and it looks there's this really great book. I don't remember the title of it, where an artist used a bunch of skulls of animals that exist today and using the exact same formula that people have in the past drew what they would assume those skulls looked like. And then on the next page, they'll have the actual animal. And,
Mm-hmm.
in every single depiction, it looks awful and it does not look like the actual animal because while it gives you a guide and can help you in the future, it's not helpful in understanding the actual shapes because, sure, there's the skeletal structure, but you still have things like fat
Mm-hmm.
and cartilage and all those things. Elephant skulls are weird. They're so cool. I like elephants.
Elephants are great.
They're so cute.
When it comes to very specific advice, what was a very good one that you randomly found?
Good advice that I found. In terms of like techniques, or
Mm-hmm. Just anything that comes to mind, but
I'd say like
more
some of the
specific.
best
Mm-hmm.
and most helpful things that I found were Live 2D face separation. I wish there was
Mm-hmm.
more guides out there, but a lot of them are not in English, so I have to struggle a little bit. But tutorials for Live 2D are so cool. I think it's such a unique and engaging part of art because not only do you have to draw an image, you have to make sure all the underneaths of the image work together. And it's such a fun and also torturous process.
Another question that I have, we talked about that earlier, but um, how do you personally deal with art burnout and art block?
This is the wrong answer, but I push through it. To be fair, I haven't dealt with too much art block or burnout, and I'm really scared that the day will arrive.
Mm-hmm.
However, so far, I haven't dealt with too much of it. I've had some minor slumps where, I'll have a piece that was commissioned to me, and then suddenly I no longer have any ideas or inspirations on how to create what the client desired. And I think that's my biggest fear of like going, oh, this is, a this is a commission. I have to complete this on a timely manner. But I feel like I need to let my brain and my creativity rest, and I do not have the luxury to take those breaks. And a lot of times I just kind of power through it because, what else can you really do? As for like an actual art block, I've been lucky enough to not have to deal with it because I don't push myself that hard. As much as I do draw, every single day, I do such a wide variety of commissions. I don't ever really get burnt out on one particular thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because if I do get burnt out on, let's say, overlays, I can just close that for a bit and work on other commissions. And I think that certainly helps a lot. Um, but for people that only offer one type of commission, like only do illustrations, I feel like it's easier to get blocked, a lot easier, and not know how to push forward.
So basically, working in your style and having variety of small things to do keeps you away from
variety.
art burnout.
Yes, I think the biggest issue is people don't have variety. They only really create one thing. And once you create a bunch of that one thing, sometimes you run out of creative juices. And that's when you plateau as an artist. And that's why you experiment, you try new things.
Another question I have, because you said you don't really play that many games and stuff, or watch more action movies or drama movies. But is there any specific creative direction of a game or a movie that you think is just very cool per se and unique?
I always love animation. I think animation is the coolest thing ever, but it intimidates me greatly, and I don't think I could ever do full animations. Especially frame by frame. Live 2D is a different conversation. I feel like I could pick that up, but frame by frame animation, absolutely not. I don't think it'll ever happen. It's very time consuming as well. And I'm the type of person where I like to see my final product. I don't like to sit on things for very long. Again, it's me being very stubborn and headstrong. I'm not very patient. Patience is not a virtue that I have.
So nothing in particular, but hand-drawn animation as a whole, basically.
Yes. I love animation so much. I think it's such a labor of love.
Oh, it truly is.
And I do not have that much love in me.
Only for Stinky Lucy.
Oh gosh, Lucy gets no love. She's been a bad girl. Naughty child.
The stinky cat.
Ugly daughter.
Yeah, that's about reaching the end of my interview questions. I have about 2 more.
Ooh.
And they are not exactly questions. Well, one of them is, but with all the wisdom and all the knowledge you have given, is there anything that you want to share as a teaching advice?
I don't really have much advice to give because I feel like everyone's experience is so fine-tuned to, how much time they have and what what inspiration, creativity they can offer from day to day. And the only tip, as, cliche as it is just to start, because that's the main thing holding you back. For example, PewDiePie had the challenge where he drew every single day, and even the things that he started off with weren't terrible, but they weren't great. And you can see how much even putting like 30 minutes a day can really help you grow. Even if it's a small thing, like sketching 15 minutes before you go to bed, you can always spare 10 to 15 minutes. Just starting will push you a whole lot.
So just start and do a little bit.
Just start. And if things don't feel right, don't push yourself too hard. But, if you can, just continue.
That is very good advice. And lastly, the best question of them all. Do you want to do some self-promotion?
Self-promotion. I don't really have much to promote other than like, hey, my VGen, go check that out. I do like everything. I'm the type of artist where I like to constantly try out new things. I don't necessarily like to hold myself to one style or offer only like one type of service. So whatever you need, I can probably offer it. It's just a matter of me learning. Here, I've drawn two poorly drawn ears for you. One has some color because
perfect.
This is the way I kind of sketch out color. Is I do very loose guides on where I think the shadows will hit before I clean things up.
We got the ear sketch.
Ear sketch. In 3 years, if you start now, this is what your ears can look like in 3 years. You can be this. It's beautiful, I know. Very hyper realistic.
Yes. But yeah. Thank you so much for answering all the very difficult questions
Thank you
and
for
sharing.
interviewing me. I know I don't have much
Yes.
advice to give, but
Oh no, there was so much advice.
hey, I'm proof you can start from nothing and be something.
I mean, just looking back, even when you said you have no fundamentals, you had enough that basically all fundamentals tied together. No,
Oh
you're
yeah,
doing amazing.
Saf interviewing Saf one.
Yes, I will just interview myself.
Hey, perfect time to use reflection. You have a mirror in front of you.
I have drawn, I think, school aside, a total of 5 individual pieces, of which 3 are portraits. So.
Ooh. Same thing for me. In my art drought from for 10 years, I've in between drew maybe like 4 things, all of them being sketches and portraits. Nothing too creative. It was just mimicking IRL images. It was the easiest thing to do.